Well, thank you for talking to me about the committee and shedding some light on that. I do just want to touch on your background and your work on the Virgin Islands because actually today during your opening statement, I learned that you were Republican actually until 2008. So just tying it all back together of what we've been talking about with bipartisanship and just you know, the lack of bipartisanship in Congress today, not just in the weaponization committee, but as a whole. What do you think led to that shift where you decided to go to the Democratic Party? And how does the Republican Party today differ than the one that you belong to?
Well, I served as a staffer for Republican members of Congress. Some of them, if I see them, as many staffers do, I still call them boss when I see them. They think that's pretty funny. But these were gentlemen who were really interested in supporting people and supporting their constituents who were moderate Republicans. And I served and was very proud to serve after September 11th at the Justice Department under President George W. Bush. And when people ask me what caused me to go over to the Democratic Party, I simply state to them that I didn't go anywhere. I stayed exactly where I was. The Democratic Party is a large enough tent that we can have blue dogs and moderates and new Dems and progressives and people from all over the country that look different ways. And my values fit right in there. And the Republican Party moved away from me and is now a party that is focused on power, focused on fear and hate among us, is not trying to unite Americans, but trying to continually divide them so that they can retain power to themselves.
And so beyond the work on this committee, what are your priorities when it comes to representing the Virgin Islands? And how do you make sure your voice is heard as a non-voting delegate?
Well, correction is that I'm not non-voting, I'm limited voting.
Okay.
And that's
So yeah,
something
what does
that,
that mean? Because I don't think a lot of people understand that distinction at
right.
all.
So the distinction is that non-voting would mean that you have absolutely no vote. And limited voting means that I vote in committee fully. I actually vote on the floor up until final passage of legislation. So if there are amendments on the floor, we also do that. Um, and I think it just remains the same way I've lived my entire life as a Black woman, is that you've got to work harder, you got to do more to have your voice heard, to be taken seriously. I know that the people of the Virgin Islands are really amazing people who have been a part of this country. Even before we were purchased from Denmark in 1917, we, have given some of our best, whether it's in wars and fighting with the United States, or one of our best and brightest with men putting their money together to send Alexander Hamilton to New York from the island of St. Croix, where my family is from and where I live, to be a part of the American experience. And so, like him, I believe that government is here to support us, to grow business, to support economies, to give people freedoms, for people to be able to have their voice. And that's how I fight for the people of the Virgin Islands. Most of my focus is on ensuring that the Virgin Islands is treated equitably when legislation comes out, because we have been forgotten, because we have disproportionately been left behind, that there's work to be done to ensure that we can have the same opportunities that people living on the mainland can have.
Would you like to see statehood for the Virgin Islands one day?
I think I'd like to see whatever the people of the Virgin Islands want, whether that's statehood, but most definitely more than anything, people of the Virgin Islands just want to be treated fairly. I know that they would love to have a vote for president. We serve in the military in disproportionately larger numbers than people that are living on the mainland. That was one of the first things that we asked for when we became citizens, was to be part of the draft, to have the responsibility along with the benefits of being part of the American experience. And so I think that that's what we want at this time, to be given a vote, to vote for our president in the same way the District of Columbia does, although they're not a state. And we would also like to be treated fairly and to be considered in legislation in the same manner that people living on the mainland do.
And my last question for you, just looking toward the election, what is your outlook for 2024? Are you confident Democrats will take back the House? And what would Democrats do if they are to regain the majority?
Well, I'm really excited about that. I believe that we have a great opportunity to take the House and to make Hakeem Jeffries the next Speaker of the House, the first African American to be Speaker of the House, the second in line to the presidency. And I'm even more excited because I know what a man of integrity is, how he has continued to put people over politics in everything that he does. And that's been the mantra that Democrats have had. I know that as someone who has sat on the Ways and Means Committee, that there is a tax bill that's going to be expiring, the Trump tax bill that supported the wealthiest Americans at the expense of middle class and working Americans. And I know that that's something that we're going to work really hard on. And we're also going to ensure that in the same way we did during the pandemic, that Americans had the support that they need to move ahead, that we're going to advance that agenda even more after 2024.
And then what would happen if, say, Democrats win back the House, but there's potentially a second term for the Trump presidency? How would Democrats handle that?
If God forbid he became president, we try to find mutual grounds in areas that we can work on. But everyone needs to remember that Congress is the one that has the power of the purse. And so we will use that to ensure that we support Americans and their ideals to home ownership, wealth creation, to have opportunities to work and to advance, to have health care, to feel safe, their own bodily autonomy. Those are the things that we're going to make sure that will be advanced and that we will be a stop to an individual who has shown that should he become president again, he will be out of control and interested only in his own benefit.
Well, that's the end of my questions. Thank you so much. Is there anything you would like to add that we didn't get to touch on yet?
No, sounds good.
Thank you so much for your time today, Congresswoman.
Thank you.